Goldie Hawn reveals the 5 actors she hates more than anyone. America's sweetheart, the golden girl of comedy, that infectious laugh and sunny personality that's charmed audiences for over 5 decades. Goldie Hawn seems like the kind of person who wouldn't have an enemy in the world. But behind that dazzling smile and bubbly persona lies something few fans know about: a steely resolve and an unwavering standard for how people should behave, especially in Hollywood. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 5 shocking feuds between Goldie and some of the biggest male stars in the industry. These aren't just minor disagreements or tabloid fabrications. These are deep-seated resentments built on troubling behavior, painful set experiences, and fundamental clashes of personality that Goldie has privately discussed for years. And what's most surprising, the Golden Girl's ability to maintain her public image while harboring these strong feelings about some of Hollywood's most powerful men. The contrast between her sunny public persona and these private grievances reveals a far more complex woman than most fans ever realized. You might be wondering how someone as universally loved as Goldie Hawn could have such intense negative feelings toward other major stars. Isn't Hollywood just one big, happy family? Hardly. The reality of filmmaking puts enormous pressure on relationships, forcing people with wildly different temperaments to work together in high-stress situations for months at a time. And Goldie, despite her cheerful image, has always been something else behind the scenes, a consummate professional with little patience for difficult behavior from her colleagues. Let's examine the 5 men who managed to get on the wrong side of Hollywood's Golden Girl, and why their conflicts reveal so much about the true power dynamics of the entertainment industry. There are ways to practice religion. This, of course, wouldn't be one of them. 1. Chevy Chase, the co-star who tested her limits. On screen, they had undeniable chemistry. Foul Play, released in 1978, showcased the comedic talents of both Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase at the height of their powers. Their timing was perfect, their rapport seemed genuine, and audiences fell in love with them as a duo. The film was a massive hit, grossing over $50 million, impressive numbers for the late 1970s, and critics praised the pair's on-screen connection. But what was happening when the cameras weren't rolling tells a completely different story. According to multiple sources close to Goldie, working with Chevy Chase was one of the most challenging experiences of her career. The problem started almost immediately with Chase's punctuality, or rather, his lack thereof. The former Saturday Night Live star reportedly made a habit of arriving late to set, sometimes keeping the entire production waiting for hours. For someone like Goldie, who prided herself on professionalism and preparedness, this wasn't just annoying, it was downright disrespectful. Then there was Chase's ego. By 1978, he had already established himself as one of comedy's biggest stars. His transition from SNL to movies had been remarkably successful, and Foul Play came on the heels of his hit film, Oh, Heavenly Dog. This success, according to those who worked with him, had given Chase an inflated sense of his own importance, and it showed in his treatment of others on set. Chevy would constantly needle Goldie between takes, revealed a crew member who worked on Foul Play, and requested anonymity. He'd critique her line readings, or suggest she try different approaches, even though she was already an Oscar winner and he was still relatively new to film acting. It created this weird tension that everyone could feel. What made the situation particularly difficult was that Chase's behavior wasn't consistently problematic. He could be charming, funny, and engaging one moment, then dismissive and condescending the next. This unpredictability made it nearly impossible for Goldie to establish a comfortable working relationship with him. The breaking point allegedly came during the filming of a particularly challenging comedic sequence. After multiple takes, director Colin Higgins was satisfied with their performance and ready to move on. Chase, however, loudly insisted they do another take, implying that Goldie had missed some of the comedy beats. According to witnesses, Goldie maintained her composure in the moment, but was later overheard telling her longtime agent, "I love the character, but not the man." Years later, when asked about potential future collaborations with Chase, Goldie was diplomatic but firm. Some people just have different approaches to their work. Chevy is tremendously talented. His comic timing is perfect. But sometimes perfect timing isn't everything if you're not aware of anyone else in the room. What makes this feud particularly interesting is how successfully both stars have kept it under wraps. They've appeared at industry events together, exchanged pleasantries, and never publicly criticized each other. But behind closed doors, Goldie has reportedly used her considerable industry influence to ensure their paths rarely cross professionally. Their conflict represents a classic Hollywood dynamic, the clash between raw talent and professional courtesy, between being good at your job and being good to work with. And for Goldie Hawn, that distinction has always been crystal clear. Will you mind if we finish talking about Elizabeth Warren and we go back into Elizabeth Warren? Yeah, that's it. Bill Murray, the star she refused to work with. Unlike her history with Chevy Chase, Goldie Hawn and Bill Murray never actually worked together on a film, and according to industry insiders, that was very much by Goldie's design. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Murray and Hawn were two of comedy's biggest draws. Their pairing would have seemed natural for studio executives looking to create box office magic. In fact, they were reportedly considered for at least 3 major projects together during this period. Each time, negotiations advanced to serious stages before Goldie ultimately passed on the opportunity. Why would one of Hollywood's most successful actresses repeatedly turn down chances to work with one of its biggest male stars? The answer, according to those close to Goldie, lies in what she had heard about Murray's on-set behavior, particularly his treatment of women. Goldie does her homework, explained a longtime friend of the actress. Before signing on to any project, she talks to people who've worked with her potential co-stars. What she heard about Bill Murray set off major alarm bells. The reports that allegedly concerned Goldie centered around Murray's behavior during the filming of What About Bob in 1991. The comedy, which co-starred Richard Dreyfuss, was notoriously troubled, with well-documented tensions between Murray and director Frank Oz. But what really caught Goldie's attention were stories about how Murray's erratic behavior affected female members of the crew. Several women who worked on What About Bob described Murray as having wild mood swings, being charming and collaborative one minute and coldly dismissive the next. There were reports of him ignoring female crew members' input, talking over women in meetings, and occasionally making uncomfortable comments that walked the line between joke and insult. One particularly troubling incident allegedly occurred when a female production assistant made a minor scheduling error. According to witnesses, Murray berated her so severely in front of the entire crew that she was in tears. When another woman stepped in to defend her colleague, Murray reportedly turned his anger on her as well. When these stories reached Goldie through her industry connections, she allegedly told her agent, "I don't do bullies. Bill might be charming until the cameras stop rolling, but that's not enough." What makes Goldie's stance particularly noteworthy is that it came long before the Me Too movement brought widespread attention to power dynamics in Hollywood. At a time when many in the industry were willing to overlook difficult behavior from male stars, Goldie was quietly taking a stand. "She's always been ahead of her time that way," said a director who has worked with Hawn multiple times. Goldie understood her own value and the power she had to choose her collaborators carefully. She never needed to make a public statement. She just quietly declined projects that would put her in situations she considered unhealthy. In the years since, Murray's reputation for difficult behavior has become more widely known. Conflicts with directors like Harold Ramis and actors like Lucy Liu have made headlines. More recently, production on the film Being Mortal was suspended in 2022 due to a complaint about Murray's on-set behavior. For her part, Goldie has maintained a diplomatic silence about Murray in public, never directly criticizing him in interviews. When asked in a 2018 conversation why she and Murray had never worked together despite being comedy contemporaries, she simply smiled and said, "Sometimes the right project just doesn't come along." Those who know her well, however, understand exactly what she meant. This is my dog. Around me. 3. Donald Sutherland, the intellectual who crossed a line. Donald Sutherland's reputation as one of the finest actors of his generation is well-earned. With performances ranging from MASH to Ordinary People to The Hunger Games, he's demonstrated remarkable range and depth throughout his career. But according to those in Goldie Hawn's circle, his artistic brilliance comes with a personality that Goldie found impossible to tolerate, not because of how he treated her, but because of how she witnessed him treating another actress. The story begins in the 1970s, when Sutherland was working on a film with actress Jill Clayburgh. While Goldie wasn't involved in the production, she was close friends with Clayburgh and frequently visited her on set. What she allegedly observed during these visits left a lasting impression. Donald had this way of making people feel intellectually inferior, recalled a makeup artist who worked on the production. He would quote obscure literature or philosophy,